This is my first visit to Cumbria, and part of its beauty is driving on these rural roads that snake around the fells. But they have to be treated with respect.
Both vehicles will then go through a process of forensic investigation.
This was a head-on crash, and officers now have to figure out why one of those cars ended up on the wrong side of the road.
Almost 1 in 6 crashes in Cumbria that result in someone being hurt involve a teenage driver. That is the worst statistic in England. So how do we change that? I'm on a journey around the county to find out. I know what it's like to be involved in a serious car crash. When I was 21 and travelling in Australia, I collided with a truck. The impact was so hard I lost my arm in the smash. It's made me passionate about warning young drivers about the dangers on our roads. Although I lost my arm, I know I'm lucky to be alive. Dominic Loftus wasn't so lucky.
Dominic was one of those people, in fact he's the only person I know that was actually comfortable in his own skin, who often put other people's needs in front of his own. He was just, I'm bound to say, a really very, very nice young man.
Dom had been working all night in the kitchen of the pub he managed and joined some friends for a night out after his shift. He didn't know it, but the driver had drunk 5 pints and 2 whiskies before getting behind the wheel.
It was 6:30 in the morning and I was in bed. Susan was at the sink and I believe a couple of yellow jackets had peed in that window. And it was the police, and Susan, I think you knew, didn't you? Yeah, Susan knew what it was and came screaming up the stairs to get me out of bed. And you do believe it because the police are here, but you don't believe it. And probably the most awful moment in our lives, I suspect.
The young driver was Ryan Glendinning, who was jailed for 5 years.
They left, we think, about 11. So we're literally down the road, 2 miles, 1 person dead, 2 people really, really badly injured.
And I guess quite hard to explain, but as a family, how you've tried to cope with that?
You don't cope for months, do you?
No, I think you just, your life changes.
Stops.
It becomes an existence, not a life.
Yeah.
While I investigate young people's driving, it's only fair I take a look at my own habits behind the wheel. So as I travel around the county, I've agreed to have this black box fitted to my car. It will monitor my driving. More on that later. A recent report analysed statistics into crashes involving young people. It concluded that a new, more rigorous testing period for new drivers, called the graduated driving licence, would make our roads safer. It's estimated in Cumbria that could prevent at least 5 deaths or serious injuries a year and reduce casualties by more than 50 on the county's roads.
Before taking the test, you would have a more structured period of learning, so a minimum number of hours. And then on passing the test, you'd have a number of restrictions on your driving licence for around about 12 months. That would be passenger restrictions and nighttime driving restrictions.
Why does Cumbria have the highest number of serious accidents and deaths on the roads in 17 to 19-year-olds in England?
Cumbria is a very rural county, it's sparsely populated, a number of rural roads. All these factors we know add up to a greater risk on the road.
I like the sound of this graduated driving licence and want to find out what impact it's had in other countries.
My name is Jean Shope. I'm a research professor at the University of Michigan.
So I'm calling America, where it's been a success.
Some of the reductions have ranged from 20% to 40%, whether it's in all crashes, serious injury crashes, or fatal crashes.
Do you think it would be of benefit to young drivers within the UK?
I have no doubt that it will be of benefit to young drivers in the UK, but these are still adolescents, teenagers who are developing, and they need more practice driving before they're totally competent at it.
When you're young, no one ever thinks a serious accident will happen to them. I was just the same. So using this hard-hitting film, I've teamed up with Cumbria Fire Service and car club Cruise West Cumbria to talk about my experience. I'm sure the astute ones amongst you have noticed I'm minus a limb, Mine was from a car crash. I ended up 10 foot down an embankment with my right arm sitting across my lap. I picked my arm up and carried it out of the car. So they didn't have to amputate the scene, the crash did it for me.
Now a chance for me to go to a car cruise to see their souped up motors and get their thoughts on the graduated driving licence.
What kind of restrictions would you like to see on young novice drivers that you think will make the roads a safer place?
Not really in restrictions as such, but I think more advanced driving would help. I mean, when I passed my test, I'd got my licence, yeah, but I wasn't a good driver.
I did the Pass Plus when I passed my test, and that was a massive help for me. Learning how to drive on the motorways and on the back roads around here, because if that was covered on the normal test and you got to drive at night time and in different weather conditions, it would make it a lot better.
I would think more learning should be done, like advanced driving. They do it in foreign countries like Finland, they go through advanced courses, so why not start doing it here?
So, if the graduated driving licence could save lives, why has it not been introduced?
Instead, the government wants insurance companies to use black boxes, like the one in my car, to help cut accidents on the road. And I've downloaded my results.
Well, the data's in from the black box that I had installed in my car. Not bad. Speed okay, acceleration good, braking needs a bit of improvement.
The idea is safer driving and therefore cheaper insurance.
Because the insurance premiums are now so much cheaper, about 50% less for being insured this way, what you'll see is it's going mass market. Today at least 50% of teenagers are opting to be insured this way.
But as we've seen, the graduated driving licence has worked in other countries.
I wanted to speak to the government about why, despite all the research both here and abroad, the Department for Transport has no plans to introduce the graduated driving licence and potentially save young lives. There are 5 transport ministers and incredibly none of them would speak to me on camera.
But in a statement, the Department for Transport said,
"There is a difficult balance to strike between the safety and the freedom of our young drivers. We won't rule out any programme, but at the moment we are focusing our efforts on technological solutions."
We would say the evidence is there. We know that it works throughout the world, and it would save 4,500 casualties a year and 430 lives in the UK. We would say it needs to be done.
They haven't necessarily driven in the dark, they haven't driven on the motorway, they haven't driven on country roads, which I suspect where a lot of the accidents happen in Cumbria. And that potentially should be part of the driving test.
I think I'd welcome the driving test having a refresh. There's no doubt about that. What I wouldn't welcome is making life even harder for young drivers, because actually having a car is all about mobility. Life's hard enough as it is for young people at the moment, and if we're just going to make it harder, then no, I'm not supportive of that.
So, let's see if the black box is the solution and can help reduce accidents. Personally, I'd like to see the graduated driving licence come in, protecting vulnerable young drivers as they start their life behind the wheel. Anything that helps reduce the heartbreak to friends and families when drivers and passengers are seriously injured or killed on the roads can